I'm on, Barb.
Hello. All right, let me try.
I'm laying down doing my PowerPoints right now since Power School is down.
So make host, make co-host. And Jessica said in her response to me that it's called the alternate host, but I had to do it from the Zoom website and I couldn't find that. So do you think if I just do co-host, you'll have all the same?
Yeah.
I'll just do that. Make Heidi the co-host. Okay, so you are a co-host.
So I can so you set it up where you don't have to let people in, right?
Correct, and there should be no dinging. There was already a woman on here, but she went off again. We're already recording. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm recording. And screen share. All right, welcome everyone. We should be recording and we're gonna have Wendy Loberg, our interim principal, do an introduction, and also Jessica Bussey. So take it away, Wendy.
Hi, everyone. This is me, Wendy Loberg, interim principal here at this fabulous high school. I welcome each and every one of you and your incoming child. For many of you, it might be your first child coming to high school. And for you, we know you have a ton of questions and we're happy to answer them. Some of you, this may be your last child entering and you can help mentor your friends in the same grade level. Either way, we're hopeful to prepare information for you that's going to answer your questions and then have time for you to ask questions of us as you help your child navigate the many choices that exist here at the high school level. So again, I'm Wendy Loberg and I'm so happy you're here tonight, and our amazing counselors have prepared lots of great information for you. So nice to put a face to a name for those of you that put your cameras on. So thank you. And Jessica?
And I am Jessica Bussey. I'm one of two assistant principals, and I have to tell you that high school is both probably the most frustrating and the most fun time in my mind. And it's been really fun to be the senior class administrator and the freshman class administrator. The freshman parents want to help their children and their children don't want their help, and the senior parents are anxiously awaiting the seniors leaving their houses. So it's definitely the bookends. So it's exciting to welcome in another class and see all of you join the SLP high school family. So welcome.
Thank you, ladies. And I'll just do a brief welcome as well. And before we get started, I want to say hello or introduce you to both Kelsey Milne, who's on tonight, and Heidi Cosgrove. I think if you guys say a brief hello, then they can identify where you're at.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Milne. I'm currently the 10th grade counselor. So I have the class of 2023, and I love working at St. Louis Park. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Cosgrove. I am currently the counselor for the class of 2022. And I think what always amazes me is just kind of how quickly things go by and how quickly our kids are growing up. And it's fun to see them through this process. We love it.
Great. So they will both be here throughout the presentation and be available at the end to help me with kind of a question and answer time. And we'll have time for you to put things in the chat or just kind of talk at the end. My name again is Barb Nelson. I'm the 9th grade counselor. I am a proud Park grad as well as over 20-year employee. It feels like it's gone so fast. My information is listed there and you can contact me at any time if you have questions about this process. I think more importantly than all that is I'm a parent too. I have a senior, a freshman, and a 6th grader right now. And I just helped my 6th grader over the weekend with his 7th grade registration and need to finish up my, helping my 9th graders. So I understand if you're new to this process and it seems overwhelming. So we want to answer all your questions tonight and be able to help you understand the process and really help your child child as well, because it can feel overwhelming and it probably seems early to start this process, but it all leads kind of down a pathway, and we need to have students make good choices so then our admin in turn can make choices for staffing and looking at class choices for next year and making those decisions in a time frame that has to happen at the district level. So that's why we started at this point, because it does take some time for us to get through our current 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And then we also will be enrolling, we just found out today, over almost 70 new students that have been approved for open enrollment to join the class of 2025. So that's exciting as well. And that process happens in March. So along with all the students coming from our middle school, there'll be a number of students that will be joining them. And generally, this is about the time of year each year that we go through this registration process. So students right now are just making choices for 9th grade. There are some tools available where students can do a 4-year plan, and something that I throw out to families all the time is to kind of sit, once you're at the high school and kind of getting used to things, maybe November, December, even early January, to do kind of a 4-year planning session, because it's sometimes nice to be able to plan out not only kind of finishing 9th grade, but 10th, 11th, and 12th, and getting ready for those next 3 years of high school once kids are a little bit more used to what's going on and maybe they've heard about different classes. One other thing I just wanted to mention is, again, for people who aren't able to join us, we're going to be posting this live recording on the website. But if you're someone who it's hard to follow, if you're not used to Zoom, in the upper right-hand corner, there should be a way for you to make the presentation, the slide portion, bigger and then minimize all the people. So if you're not familiar with it, you can kind of play around. It should be in your upper right-hand corner. Also, if you're someone who just wants to minimize this, you can follow along. These slides have already also been posted on the high school website where all the registration information is. So feel free to, follow along on just the slides if that's easier for you. But we will kind of host or answer all questions at the end. So let's get started and kind of go through some information here. So here we are tonight. We're doing this virtual meeting to inform parents and guardians about all the things registration based, but really for your students, it's going to be the week of February 22nd through the 26th. What we're doing this year is really a shift, and it's actually been kind of fun but overwhelming at the same time to kind of plan what we're doing in this virtual way with students. So they will be hearing a series of short videos that I'll record that's going to walk them through this registration process. And then at the end of that week, on the 25th and 26th, the counselors will be live with them, walking them through the registration process during their science check and connect time. So they're not going to be missing kind of class time or teaching time. We'll be meeting with them during that check and connect time that they would be checking in at anyway. And we're going to walk them through how to input their course request. It sounds like, according to Delana Brinkman, who is the current 8th grade dean at the middle school, that the kids did this at 7th grade. So they should be used to kind of this process and being able to input their course request. It should look pretty similar, and I have a screenshot of it to show you later on in the presentation. So as long as the students know how to get into PowerSchool, they will be great and be ready to be able to jump in. A couple of things, I'm noticing a big glare here, hold on. Okay, a couple of things just about the high school that we wanted to give you a little bit of an orientation or overview to, is that in thinking about kind of this registration process, it's a little different than the middle school in that we are on a semester-based system. So the classes that students start in the fall go all the way until the end, middle end of January, whenever that end of the semester is. So at the middle school, they've been on quarters, 4 quarters. So you can think of it as a quarter system, but at the high school, those quarter grades never appear on a high school transcript. It's only their semester grades, the semester final grades, that end up on the actual transcript that start their grade point average. With that, we have a 7-period day right now. And so we start at 8:25 and go till 3:15. During that 7-period day, 5th hour is the lunch hour. So depending on which class you have, you would have first, second, or third lunch. And I know I even had a current 9th grade parent reach out to me today saying, do you guys know anything about next fall and virtual or distance learning? And I was like, you know what, we're just kind of getting our feet under ourselves, going back to hybrid coming up here in another week and a half or so. So right now, we don't have any information on that, but you guys will be the first to know. There'll be more information once that comes out from the state and district level once we get to that point. One thing we do with our ninth graders is block them together or put them on kind of teams. So it's a similar approach, from middle school blended into high school, where they have courses in their English, science, and social studies, where they would have the same 3 teachers for those courses all year long. So it's a nice way for the teachers really to get to know those students. And also in turn, then as support staff, myself and a ninth grade social worker work with those teams of teachers along with our administrator to really kind of bridge that gap from middle school to high school and make sure students are getting what they need, because we know if kids are successful in ninth grade, they're more likely to graduate on time, and that is our ultimate goal for them. The one kind of thing that's a little separate from this, which sometimes throws off students as well as parents, is math is kind of separate from this. So students may have different math teachers first and second semester, and that's all based on the scheduling and how things work within PowerSchool and the shifting of sections and hours that teachers teach things. So that is one thing that's outside of control, but the block teachers, their civic science and English teachers stay the same all year long. Just a note about special education or 504 accommodations plans. If your student has qualified for an individual education plan and they receive special education services, they have a case manager at the middle school. We work with those middle school case managers to transition kids to the high school. They'll have a case manager at the high school that works closely with the counselors, as well as with the 504 accommodation plans. We help transition those students into middle school and make changes in those plans. That typically happens in late August and early September, so it's not something you need to do anything with at this point. And one thing we hope to have back, if we're all on site, obviously in the fall, is our freshman orientation and parent orientation. We know a vital, important part of transitioning students is making them feel comfortable on our campus. And so students are able to come in, do a walkthrough of their schedule, meet their teachers. And typically we end it with an activity fair during the day or the end of the day, where kids can kind of walk around from table to table and be able to check in with kids who are in activities or athletics. And then that same day in the evening, we do a parent orientation more focused on answering parent questions and kind of giving them the information they need to start out the ninth grade year successfully. Typically, this falls the Wednesday before we start school. That being said, with kind of things up in the air, we have not put a date on the calendar, but again, it's something that we'll send out through the Oriole Times once we get a date nailed down for that orientation. And right now I have a slide on this just a little bit further along. The course catalog and all the information on the website has been updated. Being at the middle school, you received a mailing and that had the registration planner sheet in it. There's been a couple little slight updates to that sheet. And so everything is updated and on the website, and all the course descriptions and things are there that you can find. And I'll show you a couple other things you'll be able to see. And then we'll be talking a little bit later on about not only honors classes, but both the advanced placement and international baccalaureate. If you are not familiar with AP or IB, those are programs that are more rigorous courses that students have the potential to earn some college credit as they go through the high school. So stepping into graduation requirements, what does it take to graduate from St. Louis Park High School? This may seem like this overwhelming, confusing thing, but I think if you break it down and just remember 46 is that magic number right now. So 46 semester credits, and that's for the class of 2023 and beyond. We had a slight change between our classes. So make sure you're looking at the right document, which is on the screen here, class of 2023 and beyond. So in terms of credits, again, students earn 1 credit per class per semester. Okay, so because we have a 7-period day, I always quiz the students. I said, okay, guys, in 4 years of high school, you have 7 classes times 8 semesters. So if you do the math, they could earn 56 credits. And in fact, we have some students that do. They earn more than they need to graduate. That's very common because kids, there's a lot of great classes and kids want to take advantage of all these different things we have. But that also means, and I think this is key, and we know kids right now, it's hard for them to manage, especially in distance learning. We know that it's hard for them to handle 7 classes. So one thing to note is that a typical freshman earns 12 to 14 classes per year, or credits per year. So that means 6 or 7 classes first semester and 6 or 7 classes second semester, to give them a total of between 12 and 14. Even if a student took a study hall all the way through high school, they would still have, 6 times 8, they would have 48 semester credits. So they would still have, as long as they've met all these different criteria we're going to talk about in a second, they still would have the credits they need to graduate. So when you start to break it down, English and social studies, for example, are areas where students need to have 8 credits. So they're taking that every semester they're here. There's designated pathways in each of those areas to get the credits you need. Sometimes a question comes up, especially like in social studies, for example. You can see there it's very specific, and that has to do with standards that the state of Minnesota, the Department of Education, says that teachers, we have to embed in these classes. So there's civics, world history, US history, and then there's a couple different options for senior social studies. But if students are taking, for example, in 10th grade, they can choose AP environment or AP world history or AP European history. Those meet and exceed the requirement of a regular world history class, so they still would fulfill the graduation requirement. So 8 each in English and social studies. Then you get to math and science. It's 6 credits each. And so typically, again, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, and there's a prescribed pathway. The one thing we tell students, and it's good for parents to hear too, that in thinking about beyond high school, we always want to make sure students are as prepared as they can be. And the more math and science they can take in high school, the better. And a typical college or university is going to want to see 4 years or 8 credits of each of those. But again, the requirement for graduation is 6 years. Most of our students will take that additional year of both math and science. And those credits then just spill over into the elective credits that count for them for graduation. There is 1 credit of health that's typically taken in 10th grade. We've changed that to a 1 semester class or credit. If some of you have had older students that had embedded health, we have switched it back to where it's a 1 semester health class offering. And then physical education is a 1 semester class typically taken in 9th grade. Once kids take that 1 credit requirement, they are done and can move on. Don't have to take Phy-Ed again if they don't want to, but we have just added some additional Phy-Ed elective classes. So there's a lot of good classes if kids like to stay active during their school day. So you can check those out in that course catalog. And then with fine arts, there's 2 credits that are required, and that can be any classes that fulfill the fine arts requirement, things in music, for example, or things in our art tech area, even things like theater arts fulfill that. And I know it's not linked here, but I know on the website we used to have a link, so we'll go back and make sure that is there to all the classes that count for that fine arts requirement. So 2 credits just over grades 9 through 12. It doesn't have to be all done in 9th grade. They can fit it in at any point. There also is an information communication literacy class that students take in 9th grade. Think of it kind of as all things computer based, and what we want to have is students have a good baseline before they go on into the upper grade levels in Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, being able to shift between Google Docs and Word and figuring out all of those things. They also do, or they have done some coding. They also do some presentations, which is great, public speaking. So all of that is embedded into the ICL course. And then this year, new for us is something called Park Connections. It replaces what was called advisory. So it's 1 credit over 4 years, and think of it as 0.25 of a credit per year. It's something that we are doing daily with kids now. We really felt the need to have them have a connection to the high school, to their teacher, or at least an adult in the building. And so there's not only social emotional learning tied into it, it's college and career readiness. And that's where at the high school, for example, we're running all of our registration over the next 3 weeks through that programming. So it's been great for us, and it's been pretty well received. We've done a lot of surveying of students, so we're excited to have that as an addition at the high school. And then the remainder of the classes that students need, or the credits, is electives. Now, one question that often comes up is world language. So you can see that's in the alternate elective or additional electives. A world language is not required to graduate, and this is something normally when we're in the classroom, we kind of quiz the kids and we ask them and, get their thoughts, but it's something that is not required for graduation. But of course, again, thinking into keeping those options open after high school, we want them to have the potential, if they choose, to keep that door open for a 4-year college or university. And generally speaking, those colleges are going to want 2 to 3 years of a single second language. Now, that being said, middle school years do count in that. If a student is finishing Spanish 1 or French 1, they can go on, or even, I don't know if any of the kids now are finishing Spanish 2, for example, but like Spanish 1, they would be able to, if they've been successful, go on into Spanish 2 at the high school level without a problem. And so there also are kids we know that are in the ESP, the immersion program. So they're sequencing through Spanish 7, 8, 9, and 10. As they go through the high school, they can continue on with the high level Spanish that they have done. And there's also a lot of other classes. I'm going to show you a visual in just a minute of all the different program and pathway areas. It does say at the bottom of this as well, it has strongly suggested additional coursework for admission to different colleges and universities and kind of what they're looking at. So you can use that as a guide as well. So 46 semester credits. This is something that's posted that you can take a look at, and we'll be explaining this to students not only as they come in as 9th graders, as the other counselors know, we hit hard on this and remind the kids every year when we go through the registration process. So one of the things on the website are these things that we just are calling pathways or placement guides, because sometimes it's helpful, you want to look at what your child might be taking in 9th grade, but then what's next after that. So in all the core subject areas, as well as some of the elective areas, we were able to provide these pathways. And so it's nice to take a look at, okay, a typical student is going to come in 9th grade taking geometry. If they struggle, they might go on to intermediate algebra, then advanced algebra and pre-calc. If they start in geometry and they're doing just fine, they might go into advanced algebra, then pre-calculus, then they have some different pathways, either AP Stats or AP Calc. And there are also other options, because we know some students are ready for some higher level math, they might choose honors, or if they're already in geometry right now at the middle school, they would be choosing between advanced algebra or honors advanced algebra. This is something I would encourage you in both math and areas like world language, or even any subject area, talk with the student's current middle school teacher about kind of readiness. One thing that's going to be tricky, and just quite honestly, I'm not sure how we're going to avoid it, is obviously distance learning for these students has been really different than what they've experienced. And so it might be hard to kind of pinpoint, gosh, is my child going to be ready? But I think your students, you know your children and kind of what they're ready for in terms of level of rigor. And if there's any question, at the high school level, when we're talking about kind of these honors and advanced classes, it's self-selection. And I'll be talking about that more in a little bit. So kids can pick and choose as they go through the high school where they want to be challenged. It's not an all or nothing. And if you don't do it in 9th grade, you don't miss out as you go along. This is where on the high school website, you can get to find all things registration based, the course catalog, these forms, the videos, all of this is going to be posted for you at the HS registration site. It's actually linked right now on the main page of our website as well. So if you just happen to find the high school, you can click right there and be directed to this site as well. And this is what I was mentioning as far as pathways. So we just finished kind of creating this sheet, and it kind of grew out of a need for a different visual for students, because we really, a few years ago, we had something we were trying to get something started called academies, right? And so this grew out of that into this idea of pathways, because obviously we want kids to think about what they're taking in high school and how that relates to life after high school. And so thinking about what are classes, if I'm interested in business, computer science and marketing, or health science and human services, what are classes I could take at the high school that are going to kind of lead me down that pathway? So you can see kind of how they're listed there, and this is available on the website if you can't see it, so you can grab one, print it off, enlarge it. It has all the different classes. And then the thing you'll notice is the bottom right. I like to point this out because it's something, again, as incoming freshman parents, it's hard to think about, this is so overwhelming, but it's really nice to know that there are some classes potentially as students go through the high school that they're going to get something called articulated college credit. That's where if students take a class at the high school that's articulated with Normandale or North Hennepin, and they do well, they get at or above a certain grade level that's laid out with the college program we're working with, they have the potential to then set foot on Normandale's campus and have that credit to be able to take with them somewhere. So it's a little jump start of thinking about college education. And so our high school teachers have worked with the college to make sure we're teaching what the students need to be able to earn that credit. We also, in our math area and potentially a couple other areas that they're growing, there's something called concurrent enrollment. And so concurrent enrollment is where you don't even have to set foot on that campus. You're actually starting a Normandale transcript, for example, while you're taking the class right here at St. Louis Park High School. So this is just a nice handy guide and kind of looking at the different content areas and what we have to offer. Oops. So when we get to the registration sheet, this is where you just have to kind of take some time to take it in, and we'll walk you through it. So you're going to be choosing from options in each of the core areas. And then students will have a semester of ICL and Phi-Ed as part of their graduation requirements. And then there's 4 options for electives. Now, again, this should have come to you in a mailing. And so I'm hopeful that if you're sitting at home, you would have this sheet in front of you and it would be pink. We sent out pink ones to just differentiate. We try to do this by grade level and have, when we're in person, we would have different colored sheets. It helped us as the counselors as these sheets kind of came flying from all different areas. Oh, I see someone has it right there. Good job. So if you have this sheet, have it in front of you and you can kind of make some notes on it. Again, we used to hand these out and then we would collect them. But because we're in this virtual world right now, we just said, you know what, we're going to get them out to people because we were able to do a mailing. But normally you could have the student download this from the website, be able to, print one off if you have that ability at home. But it's really just to use as a guide, because as you'll see later on, you're going to have the students will have everything laid out right in PowerSchool for them to be able to put in their course requests. So on the left-hand side are all the required areas. So in English, for example, most students are choosing between English and Honors English 9. In civics this year, for the first time, we switched from having a separate honors class. Everything was embedded into the same class, and the students have an option to do honors level projects to get honors on their transcript. And then in science, these are kind of the 3 big ones, then science or AP Environmental Science. And people will ask me, how do I choose? How do I make that choice or help my student make that choice? And I have a couple slides in just a few minutes that will help that. But it's really hard because there's no pat answer. Like some students barely bat an eye in terms of the level of homework. Other students, it would be overwhelming and a lot more, especially if they're active outside of school. So what the counselors, when we talk to students and families, it's kind of thinking about balance. You want to make sure that students can take on the level of classes that they can handle, and making sure that they're thinking of kind of all facets of their life, and you know them well, you know how active they are in different things, if they have outside responsibilities or family commitments. So those are all the things to think about as we kind of move forward in this registration process. With math, you'll see there that each level is listed. And one thing just to point out about this registration sheet is whenever you see boxes that are semester 1 and semester 2 or S1, S2, that means it's a full year course and your student is making a full year choice for the same course. And we'll help walk them through this, but they'll need to register for both a first semester and a second semester class. If there's one box, like in the case where you see all these electives, those are 1 semester classes that are offered either first or second semester. Luckily, we have a program called PowerSchool, which you're probably familiar with if you're at our middle school right now. And it does, well, with the help of our administrators, it does all the scheduling kind of behind the scenes and creates a master schedule. But that's why it's so important to make good choices now, because the choices and the way the schedule is built is based on what students register for. So moving down that left-hand side, Phi Ed is checked there for everyone. And then there is an option here, and we're just collecting data at this point. So that ICL class, there's going to be an option potentially, if we get approved through the Minnesota Department of Ed, to have online ICL. We're not exactly sure how that is going to look next year, so we're kind of putting it out there in hopes that it'll be figured out. What we will do is collect the data. If we aren't able to do that, it would just simply that your student would be put in the regular ICL class. If they are interested in taking one of their 6 or 7 classes as an online option, and again, I really can't give you more specifics other than it would just be similar to kind of the way school is being taught now virtually, where they would probably maybe have to check in certain days or times, or might be flipped instruction. They'll be checking in with the teacher. Well, that part would be determined, and you would obviously find out before the school year starts. But if that's something that's intriguing to them, they could select the online ICL. So it's one or the other there. And then this is something more so if your student does have an IEP, the special education piece. And again, we will work closely with case managers. Usually we sit down with the middle school in the spring and walk through all the students that have an individual education plan and talk about kind of what their course request should be. You can see up here, there's some levels in special ed or English language learning services where students, if they need those, we would help make sure they have the right courses. Okay, so on the right-hand side then, I think actually I have a slide, yes. So on the right-hand side, the biggest thing to think about is you are selecting one of these 4 options. You don't have to do all of them. It's selecting one option from the 4 that are listed there. In option 1, it is where students would have a full year of world language and a full year of music. These are students that will have a full schedule. They would have 7 classes each semester. You'll notice you're choosing your level of language, and then you're choosing what music for the full year that you would be doing. So if students do that, boom, they're done. They don't have to worry about anything else. In options 2, 3, or 4, they are gonna have a chance to have a full year course, have 1 elective, and a study hall, or 3 different electives and a study hall. And how that works in option 2 is for students who would be doing a full year of world language, and then they would choose and 1 of the electives, and they would have a study hall. In option 3, it's having a full year of music, 1 of those electives and a study hall. And then in option 4, it's having, you could choose 3 different electives and have a study hall. Now, there are some students that fall outside of these. Like in years past, I've had students who are doing 2 musics or 2 languages, but that is kind of, those are outliers. And that's certainly something I can help you figure out when we do registration or work specifically with your student. So those are things that we can work with. It's not typically the norm, and that's why we don't include it on here. Regular study halls will be placed automatically, so the students don't have to worry about that. And I know there was a parent that reached out who was just kind of wondering, well, why do they have to have a study hall? And this was something that was done a number of years ago, and it's really more about staffing and FTEs that they didn't, it obviously the more kids you have in classes, the more teaching time there is. And so in an effort to kind of maintain, the admin looked at just having 9th graders, and because we know it's a lot for 9th graders to step into 7 classes, they will take 6 classes and a study hall 1 of the semesters, again, if they're not having a full year of world language and a music, and then the opposite semester, they would have 7 classes. But again, even in option 4, and this is something, you know, I could add in option 5, but it would just add more confusion. If your student's a student that does want a study hall each semester, that is certainly doable, and they would just need to register for 6 classes each semester. So for example, if they, you know, did all their required classes and then they had, you know, maybe a full year of world language, but they want to have a study hall each semester, that's certainly okay. And just, you know, kind of make a note of it on there. And then we'll show them how to do that when it comes time to register in their Check and Connect class during science. Because again, your student's going to take this sheet and be able to put in their course request into PowerSchool directly. This is what that screen looks like for online registration. We'll be covering this a lot more in depth with your student, and we will walk them through area by area. But when we turn this on, when we go into classes, you're going to see this is what the view looks like for you in PowerSchool, the parent portal. There's going to be a sidebar here that says class registration. And then what you'll be able to see is a little pencil in each of these different areas. And you see they correspond nicely to the sheet that the students have. When they click on the little pencil, what it does is open a box that then has all the different options for them to select. And again, we help them, we walk them through this, so it should be pretty easy for students, especially at the middle school, because they have done this before. Oh, here's an example of what English looks like. So they can choose English or honors English, and there's a separate box for the EL and special ed areas. They would just choose English 9, semester 1, English 9, semester 2, and be able to click OK, and then it has them in as their course request. In some areas, especially like math, you can see down here there's a 1, but sometimes it'll have 2 listed there. So the kids might have to toggle to the second page. And, again, it's something we just help them walk through and remind them when we're in math, if you can't see your class because they're typically alphabetical, then they just have to toggle to that second screen. Here's just a visual because I know for some people it helps you, but it may be confusing and I don't want to confuse you. So this is an elective option. So those options I was just talking you through, here's option 1, where first semester, a student has all 7 classes, second semester, all 7 classes because they have their world language and their music. Okay, and then all their other classes fit in. In option 2, here's where a student has world language and their elective choice. And then semester 2, they have their 6 classes and a study hall. In option 3, here's where they have music. They have all of their classes, they have music and an elective choice. Semester 2, same thing, all their 6 classes, and they would have a study hall. And then here's option 4, just again, a visual of what it looks like with their, one semester, they might have 2 elective choices, and then they would have an elective choice and a study hall. All right, so we're going to switch gears here because I know typically, and in some cases, we have tried to have kind of a separate meeting, but we've just decided to include this for everyone because we want people to know and understand if students are interested in taking honors in 9th grade, what that means. So generally, there's a choice in all these classes. There's honors English you can choose. There's civics. Everyone is put into the same class now where it's called honors option. And then there's advanced placement, environmental science. Again, if you're not familiar with AP, this is a program run by the College Board. And so you can look up class descriptions about advanced placement to see what the curriculum looks like, have students look at what the test looks like and see sample test questions. With AP, it's a full year of a course that students are typically tested in the spring. So in May, typically of the year, they would have a test, and then depending, that test is scored on a 1 to 5 basis, and typically a 3, 4, or 5 will earn them some kind of college credit. Again, that's depending on where they go. And then there are different honors levels of math, as I showed you in that pathway sheet. If students choose not to take honors in 9th grade, it doesn't hold them out to preclude them from any other advanced classes in grades 10, 11, or 12. Okay, so this is something I really want to hit hard on that. We know that transition is hard for a lot of students, so maybe they want to really get their feet under them, take regular classes, get some good grades, and then they can pick and choose. We also know some students maybe just are really strong in English. So this is why we went to this model where kids could pick and choose individual courses. They do not have to take all or nothing, which that was kind of, we're about 5 or 6 years out from when that was the case for honors in 9th grade. So it's really nice for families to have an option to look at the student holistically, kind of decide where are my strengths, where do I want to try to challenge myself, and go from there. Things to consider when kind of looking at honors or AP courses. Generally, grades in 7th and 8th grades are a good predictor. We're obviously in a situation now where their 7th grade year ended with distance learning, and then they had distance learning in 8th grade. And so you have to kind of look at those things and kind of, we are going to hope that we're all back on site in-person learning in the fall, and how different that might be. We also know with MAP testing, I was just kind of throwing out today to find out if the middle school is going to be doing that MAP testing this year, and how that's going to work, because that's always been usually a good predictor for us. If students had, typically test scores in the 80th percentile or above, that was a good predictor of success in honors. But we also know that isn't the be all end all. There are some students that don't test well, and they work really hard and have good study skills. So it really, your students again, and what they're capable of. And so we've always had a high number of students who are interested in honors coursework. And so our hope really is for you to help your students and look at that individual selections, look for that balance with them in their class schedule, and be able to pick and choose wisely, pick the subjects where they can challenge themselves and feel most confident. One of the things too with this is it's very challenging for us, especially as we get tighter and tighter with the schedule, to make changes from honors to regular, because what happens is we again are staffing and building classes based on what students register for. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it does get challenging, and ninth graders, imagine that, get really attached to their schedule. And if they find out they all of a sudden are going to switch from honors to regular and have to change their whole schedule to accommodate that, it becomes really hard on them as a student. So, we really, again, encourage you to make good choices. Think about it. You have a couple weeks now to do that research, to talk to your students, teachers, to talk to the student, really dig into what's going to be important to them in high school. And then honors math, it's changed a little bit over time. Generally speaking, honors math has gone at a very fast pace. They looked at, and there are some recommended math MAP test scores, the RIT scores, that are usually at the 95th percentile and above. So in math, the honors curriculum really moves at a fast pace. Again, you can look at those math flowcharts. Even if you start in regular geometry or regular advanced algebra, there's ways to get to very high levels in math. So you just have to look at kind of what makes sense for your student. They have in the past had a contract, but I think they've kind of gone away from that this year with the people who are teaching the course. At this point, I know that is a ton of information, and my friendly counseling colleagues have been manning the chat, I think, and I didn't do a good job at pausing, but we will be able to kind of address any concern areas, and I can kind of look at the chat to see. We also can kind of, have people unmute and ask things, because I'm sure if you're sitting there with a question, I'm guessing maybe, 5 or 10 other people are. Again, I realize it is a ton of information, and we had over 100 people here, which is great. And so as people are kind of figuring things out, I think the takeaways I would say is take some time to look at the website, take some time to talk to your students, think about choices, and know that you have some time, and they're going to hear this information as well starting the 22nd. So if they go into that week with an idea about what this, what the sheet is, what choices they have, and then they can hear from me and then from the counselors on Thursday and Friday, they should be prepared to be able to make those choices and input things while they're in their check and connect time in science. So Kelsey or Heidi, anything that was a big chat question that came up, or were you guys able to kind of figure things out as we went through? We're doing pretty good on time, so.
Oh, I see a couple more new questions, but we were able to keep up as you were going through. Let me just look at the new ones.
Someone had asked about MAP test scores. I think those were kind of more recent ones. And so I don't, is Jessica still on here, or Wendy? I don't know if you know if they did MAP testing this fall. You 8th grade parents or guardians might know. If the students did it this fall, we would have access to scores through Viewpoint, which is just a online format that houses all of our test scores. And so we would be able to, the students, teachers or deans would be able to get that information and let you know how students did for help and placement. But that could be a question that could be directed to their current math teacher for sure. They should have access to that information. Okay, she's saying they did.
And then we have a
So-
question about how many semesters for IB on language, world language.
Yeah, so with world language, if your student is in the ESP program, they would take Spanish 7, and then Spanish 8 is actually AP Spanish language. And then as they move into 11th and 12th grade, that's where it becomes IB. And they also, I think, have an option to take another higher level AP course, but you can look at the descriptions there, but generally those students are doing the IB during their junior and senior year. Same with Hebrew, they have an option for the IB, or French or German as well. So kind of, as the kids go up in the different levels, it's different from immersion to kind of typical Spanish, French, or German. The kids usually at like German 5 or German or French 5, Spanish 5 are 4 or 5 are doing the IB or AP levels of those languages once they get into the higher levels.
There's also a
And then
question
another, oh, go ahead.
difference between AP and IB.
Yep, and this is, we could have a whole session on this. I'm realizing it's getting really dark in here. Sorry, I look like I'm lit up. So advanced placement and IB, again, International Baccalaureate, are both rigorous courses that you have the potential to test and earn some college credit. Many of you from the middle school are familiar because they have a middle years program at the middle school for IB. So you're used to kind of some of the language around IB and how that works. When students get into the high school, there's the IB diploma program, which is typically in 11th and 12th grade. So there aren't any decisions students need to make coming into 9th grade if they wish to take on the IB diploma program. What that diploma program is taking classes in 6 content areas, as well as doing some additional things to try to earn what's called the IB diploma. When you think about that, and I've been having meetings with several students and families, the percentage of students that are going for the IB diploma is typically very small. So, from anywhere from 8 to 10, 20 to 22 kids at the most are doing that of the whole senior class. So it's not a high percentage. It's really students who love learning for the sake of learning, really want that engagement, are willing to push themselves to that ultimate level while in high school. What we have is more students taking what they call certificate courses. So they just take an individual
I
IB
think
course.
Barb froze.
Oh, can you still
We
hear me?
lost all.
Sorry, can you hear? I'm here. Oh, now you guys are all freezing. Can you hear now?
Ben,
Oh, can you hear now?
but you're not going to go in depth. IB, you're not going to get as much content, but you are really going to go in depth of that content. So that's how I see the difference in AP and IB. We also see a difference in terms of what happens in the classes. AP tends to be very, it tends to have that freshman college feel of having lecture and notes and your tests, multiple choice, some essays kind of every couple weeks. Whereas IB tends to have more discussions and perhaps a little bit more projects. And then the tests that they do might be more essay tests. So that's some of the differences that I see in particular with IB.
Thanks, Heidi. Sorry for that technical difficulty there. All right, other questions?
Did I answer your question?
Ms. Nelson, I just wanted to make sure, is the 4-year planning sheet going to be available on the website, or where can they find that? We had a question about that.
This year, because of being virtual, we have made an electronic version.
Study hall, isn't it?
And so I'm going to work with Matt to get that posted, and we can also post one of the paper copies. So if people want to print that off, I used to always have like one kind of written out with different options too. So we can try to go back and post those so people could see them as well. I'll make a note to do that.
And then we also had a question about what is the IB diploma?
So the IB diploma is really, like I was saying, it's taking classes in those 6 content areas, as well as writing an extended essay, doing volunteer hours in community action and service, and taking a class called Theory of Knowledge. So there's another kind of separate component
Oh,
beyond.
Barb, we lost you.
Barbie
Barb.
lost you.
So just to kind of continue where Barb left off. So when students pursue the IB diploma, it is often described as kind of doing a rounded, what we might think is like a liberal arts education. A thinking about thinking class, like a philosophy class, super fun. And then they're taking 3 semesters in their junior and senior year to work on an extended essay. So it's very all encompassing, and a really nice program. One of the things that's great about St. Louis Park is that we're a school that if you do not want to pursue the IB program, you can still take IB classes, which is really nice. I know there's some schools out there that's like, well, if you don't do the IB diploma, you can't take IB classes. And so we welcome students to even absolutely take. So there's a lot of room for making decisions as you're moving through high school.
Someone had asked, and I just realized about the piece on the very bottom of the sheet. There's a place to write alternate electives. So what we're wanting students to do is give us their first choice, and they will be able to put in their alternates in the system, because our hope is to get everyone their first choice, but that doesn't always happen. So they might put intro to art down, but they'd be okay with woodworking. And so that way, when we come back to work in the fall and we're working through student schedules, if there's ever any conflicts or issues, we can take a look at that and then slot in an alternate for them. So we'll walk them through that process. So make sure students are selecting an alternate as well. I think, Heidi, did you kind of touch on the benefits of the IB diploma, what we hear from students? So typically you don't really find out you're getting that IB diploma until after you graduate, which is always interesting, right? And so when you're a senior and you're applying, you can say on your application and on a resume, you could say you're an IB diploma candidate, and colleges and universities know what that means. They know the level of rigor that would take. You find out typically in July after.
Lost you again. Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback on what Barb is saying. So yeah, the colleges, all the colleges across the country and the world, because it's an international program, know exactly what the IB the curriculum is. They know that if you're doing IB history in Minnesota, your IB history is going to be the same if you're down in Florida or over in France. So it's a very particular curriculum that is universal. And with that said, our students, similar to AP, they will end up taking IB tests in May, and depending upon those scores that they get, then they can bring that into their next post-secondary choice for potential college credit. And every college is different in terms of how they accept college credit. And so every college has a transfer system that will help your student determine if they're going to bring in any college credit from AP or IB tests.
I know that people might have other questions not related to AP or IB, and if you do want information, oh, you can't hear. Can you guys hear me? No. I am not sure what is going on.
Just trying to see.
Oh, am I back yet?
Yeah.
Okay. I know if people have questions about IB, Jenny Magdal has posted some videos, and I would highly encourage you to watch those to be able to just get a broad brush overview. Someone had asked more about kind of talking more about civics and the honors option. So basically all students are in the same course. There will be projects that students would take that are distributed throughout the semester. And if they complete those projects, they would be able to have the honors designation on their transcript. That's how this was the first year for us doing that. Actually, we just finished the first semester. So we'll see, I haven't even gotten a number yet to know how many students took advantage of that option. Any other questions that aren't kind of AP or IB related? And we can kind of circle back. We probably have a little bit more time before we need to jump off and go into the 9th to 10th grade meeting. So other questions just in general?
Barb, a follow-up to the civics question was, when do you need to decide?
You know, you just decide while you're in the class. And so as you're going through, some students kind of worked on those projects as they were assigned. That probably is the best thing to do. So you have balance throughout the semester. I wouldn't want to hold on to waiting till the end of the semester for all those projects. Other just general questions, you can feel free to unmute if that is easier than typing something in. I apologize. I'm not really sure what's happening with my internet tonight. Yeah. And no one in my house is on it, I swear. PSAT, someone asked about. It's a pre-SAT, sorry. Typically that's a test that students would take in their junior year because that's the year you qualify for National Merit Scholarship Competition. We have had 10th graders and even some students as young as 9th grade take it as a practice. There will be more information about that in the fall. Similar to how at the middle school you have the Oriole Times that comes out weekly, we have something called the 6425 News. And if there's one thing that,
again, Barb.
We have the 6425 newsletter for the high school, and that comes out every week. And so that's an opportunity for weekly information so that you can know what is up and coming at the high school in terms of any testing or programming or just information that we want to get out to everybody. So that's a weekly program, weekly newsletter.
Other questions? Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it just doesn't like me talking anymore. Says you are done. No. Other things, and you can, feel free to email, call if you have questions. Take some time to digest this and be able to think about it and look through things on the website. Anything we can do to help make it easier for you is what we are here for.
Barb, do you want to add emails and phone numbers in the chat so people know how to access you or any of us? And also, when Barb mentioned Jenny Magdal, she is our IB coordinator. So if you have specific IB questions, let's put her contact information also, and then you know exactly who to call for what. Because this is a ton of information. And when you talk with your child about all of these choices, I'm sure more questions will come up.
All of us are similar in that we're last name dot first name at slpschools.org. So it's easiest probably to email at this point. At the high school level, all of our phones roll into our Google Voice as well. So you can get a hold of us that way or even text on that Google Voice number. I think there is, I don't know if it's posted on the website of the publication, but we can make sure to post all of our contact information on there as well. They're talking about the question about students taking all classes. And back in the day where we had students kind of have that all or nothing option, we historically had probably about 120, 110, 120 students taking advantage of that, where they did all their courses that way. It really depends on each individual student. And, again, that balance is key, that it really is looking at what your student can handle. They're not going to miss out on anything if they don't take an honors level class right away. And in fact, they may end up having a higher GPA if they're able to, get really good grades to start. Whereas if they struggled in those grades along the way initially, it just really depends. So you want to look at all those courses. I think if
Dr.
you're,
Barb,
you got to be paying attention.
Yeah, so I think what Barb is getting to is that what's just kind of crazy right now is we're just not in a business as usual world. And one thing I often tell my students is that sometimes it's not about do you have the brain power to take the class, it's do you have the bandwidth to take the class with everything that's going on and the transition to high school, and just all that comes with that. So it's that's kind of the piece of just the balance that is key in registering at all grade levels, especially if students are involved in activities or with the pandemic, if they're having to there's just a lot more on their plate. So that's kind of the X factor in all this, is just making sure what's going to be the best fit for your students. And again, I'm a real proponent that right now it's just not about brain power as much as it is about bandwidth.
Mhm. I think the other thing you find when your child gets into high school, there is so much more to do in terms of activities and evening events. It all becomes evening. If they play volleyball, or if they, concerts, there are many more concerts and more opportunities for clubs and theater and things that really expand their day and their experience. So, and that of course is intended, right? I mean, as the kids get older, they're going to have more independence and hopefully get involved in lots of other types of activities that help them really find who they are and what they love and what they don't love. So I would be careful to load them up on too many honors and so on, just because they need to breathe and they need to be a family member still, and get engaged in lots and lots of other exploration and activities. And if they're so tied down, then that pushes their stress level. Now, if they're innately brilliant, like some of our kids are, way smarter than me, then maybe that's what they need to stay engaged. But your child best. But I would say pushing them isn't a good idea. If a kid's begging you for it, that's something to talk about. But then keep working closely with the counselor about their mental health. Frankly, we're very, very mindful of the mental health of our kids.
And just to add to that, I think typically what we see is trying to look at that 24-hour day of what our students are dealing with and going through. By far the first thing to go in terms of their 24-hour day, in terms of trying to add more hours into the day, the first thing that goes is their sleep.
Yeah. And we're lucky we don't start till 8:15 or 8:25, excuse me. And a lot of schools start a lot earlier, but this district did the sleep time study and did make good choices, because our kids, their clocks do not go well. They like to stay up late and sleep in, and that's not their fault. That's what their natural brain sleep cycle is. So we try and find a happy medium.
We want to thank you all for being part of this tonight. It seems like questions are kind of falling off. And if you have specific things, please feel free to email me and I will be in touch. Know that if you have questions, probably other people do too. So I'll be replying to those as quickly as I can. So we really appreciate it. And I look forward to working with your incoming freshmen next year. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, you guys, I'm going to try to have Vic help me reset the internet quick in 3 minutes before we get into the next one. I don't know what's going on because we never have this issue and no one's on it at our house, which is concerning.
Do you have a lot of windows open?
Well, I tried to shut that down. The only thing is I know people have said, oh, your video having that on and I don't really want to shut it off. I suppose I could, but
You should shut it down and start over. You know how that is with technology. Turn it off and turn it on.
right. I know I may just do that. So we'll shut down. I'll shut this one off. And when I
Okay,
restart, I'll open it up and you can come in the other one. Okay.
superb. Thanks.
Great. Thanks.